My parents blew the 55K college fund. My grandparents set aside for me on my sister's sweet 16, so I got payback, and what followed left them completely shocked. As a 20-year-old woman, I need to talk about something that's been bothering me for years: family favoritism. Specifically, how my parents treat my younger sister, Madison, who's 18, like she's the absolute center of their universe. This isn't just a hunch, it's a cold, hard fact, and I have the proof. Madison has always been the golden child. You know, those memes comparing the favored kid to the scapegoat? That's basically my life. If Madison even hints at wanting something, my parents trip over themselves to get it for her. When she wanted the newest iPhone, it was in her hands within a week. But when my old phone, which barely held a charge, needed replacing, it was like I'd asked for a private jet. I ended up saving my own money to buy one. That double standard has been the norm forever. Take high school, for example. I poured my heart into a major art project for a local competition. Art has always been my thing, my escape, my passion, my dream career. I actually won first place, which was a huge deal for me. There was an awards ceremony, and I told my parents about it weeks in advance, hoping they'd show up. But no. On the day of the ceremony, they said they couldn't make it because they had errands to run. Errands, really? I went alone and had to ask a friend's mom to snap pictures of me with my trophy because, of course, I wanted to remember that moment. My parents never even asked to see the photos later, but the part that really stung came a few months later. Madison entered a dance competition. She didn't even win. She got second place. Yet my parents went all out for her. Flowers, a celebratory dinner, and they wouldn't stop talking about how proud they were. I sat there that night, watching them fuss over her like she'd just won an Oscar, and all I could think was, why? Wasn't my art award good enough? It wasn't pure jealousy. It was more this deep, aching feeling of being completely invisible. And it's not just about accomplishments. Madison gets away with everything. If she breaks a rule or messes up, my whine, parents just shrug it off. She's young, they'll say, or she's just figuring things out. But if I make the tiniest slip up, oh boy, I get the full lecture. They'll go on about how I need to be a better role model, how I'm the older sister and should know better, and so on. One time, Madison, before she even had her license, accidentally backed my dad's car into the mailbox. Instead of getting upset, they actually laughed it off, joking, well, it's not like she totaled it. A week later, I forgot to take the trash out on time, and my mom launched into a 20-minute rant about how I needed to pull my weight around the house. Right, sure, and don't even get me started on chores. I've been doing my own laundry, cooking, and cleaning since I was 12. Madison, on the other hand, will literally leave her dirty clothes on the floor, expecting me to pick them up. And the kicker? My parents let her. My mom will just say, just help her out. You're so responsible and she's still learning. I don't expect them to treat us identically. We're different people. But it feels like they don't even bother to hide their preference. It's always Madison this and Madison that. I swear I could probably invent a time machine, and they'd still somehow make it about her. The only people who truly noticed how unfair it was were my grandparents. My grandpa especially was my biggest supporter. He didn't know much about art or architecture, which is my career goal, but he always cheered me on. He'd sit with me while I sketched and say things like, "One day, I'm going to see your buildings on postcards." When I was 15, Grandpa told me he was starting a college fund for me. He said he knew my parents wouldn't be able to help much or wouldn't make it a priority, and he wanted to ensure I had a shot at my dreams. That moment meant the world to me. It was the first time I felt like someone truly believed in me. My parents didn't say much about the college fund. I think they just figured Grandpa was being overly generous. Madison, however, threw a complete meltdown. She cried and screamed, "Why doesn't Grandpa love me as much as he loves her?" My parents naturally rushed to comfort her, telling her she was just as special. Meanwhile, I just stood there, feeling like I couldn't even have this one thing without it turning into another drama centered around Madison. I've always been the quieter one in the family. I don't like conflict, and I've tried hard not to let the favoritism bother me, but it's tough when it's so constant. In high school, I started spending more and more time at my grandparents' house. It was the only place I felt like I could actually breathe. Grandpa would help me brainstorm ideas for my drawings, and Grandma always had cookies waiting for me. At home, though, it's like nothing I do is ever good enough. My parents will rave about how Madison is so talented and has such a bright future. But when I talk about my aspirations of becoming an architect, they barely react. One time, I showed my mom a sketch I was really proud of, and she just glanced at it and said, "That's nice." Meanwhile, Madison's random TikTok dances get a standing ovation. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it really stinks to feel like you're in second place within your own family. It's not even about wanting to be the favorite. I just want to feel like I matter too. Now let me tell you about the incident that finally pushed me to my breaking point with my family. I'll admit, I'd tolerated the favoritism for far too long, but by the time I was 16, it was impossible to ignore. It wasn't just about Madison getting better things or always being the focus of attention anymore. It escalated significantly. Let me paint the picture. One day, my mom received a credit card bill that was way higher than usual, hundreds of dollars in charges for clothes, makeup, and even concert tickets. Naturally, my mom freaked out. She called me downstairs, waved the bill in my face, and immediately started accusing me of spending her money. I was floored. First off, I didn't even have access to her card. Second, I wouldn't spend her money even if I could. I tried to explain this, but she wasn't listening. She kept saying things like, "Don't lie to me," and "I raised you better than this." I pointed out that Madison had been on a major online shopping spree lately. Packages with her name on them were arriving almost daily. I even offered to show her Madison's social media, where she'd been posting selfies in all her new outfits. But my mom just snapped, "Stop trying to blame your sister. You're the older one. Take responsibility for once." At this point, I was furious. Madison, of course, was nowhere in sight, probably holed up in her room watching Netflix, completely unfazed. When my dad got home, I thought maybe he'd listen to my side, but nope. He immediately sided with my mom. He started yelling about how I was ungrateful and how they worked so hard to provide for me. Honestly, I just snapped. I'd been trying to keep my head down and stay out of their way for years, but this was too much. I yelled back, telling them I wasn't going to take the fall for something I didn't do. I even went upstairs, grabbed Madison's laptop, and pulled up her order history to prove it. And do you know what my mom said? "That's private. How dare you invade your sister's privacy like that?" Are you kidding me? I was practically begging them to see the truth, and they were more concerned about Madison's privacy than the fact that she'd racked up hundreds of dollars on their card. That night was probably the worst fight we'd ever had. My dad kept yelling about how I was disrespectful and dishonest. My mom was crying, saying she didn't know what she'd done wrong to raise such an ungrateful daughter. Meanwhile, Madison finally came downstairs and played all innocent, like she had no clue what was going on. She even had the nerve to say, "I don't know why you're blaming me. I don't even use mom's card." At that moment, I realized there was no winning. They'd already decided I was the bad guy, and nothing I said or did would change their minds. So, after hours of shouting, tears, and slamming doors, I grabbed my phone and called my grandparents. When Grandpa picked up, I just broke down. I told him everything. The credit card bill, the constant favoritism, and how I was always the one blamed for everything. He didn't say much at first, but I could tell he was livid. He just said, "Pack a bag. I'll be there in the morning." The next day, Grandpa showed up early. He didn't even come inside. He just stood on the porch and told my parents, "She's coming with me. She deserves better than this." My mom tried to argue, saying it was just a misunderstanding and that I was being overly dramatic. My dad said I needed to stay and work things out as a family, but Grandpa wasn't having any of it. He looked my dad straight in the eye and said, "If you cared about working things out, you wouldn't treat her like a scapegoat." I'll never forget the look on my mom's face when I walked out the door with my suitcase. She looked shocked, like she couldn't believe I was actually leaving. Living with my grandparents was like stepping into a completely different world. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. They didn't treat me like an afterthought or a punching bag. They genuinely cared about me. Their house felt like a real home in a way my parents' house never did. I could actually relax without worrying about what Madison was up to or how my parents were going to find a new way to blame me for something. And the best part? They supported my dreams. Grandpa kept reminding me that the college fund he'd started was there for me, no matter what. He'd say, "You're going to do big things, kiddo. Don't let anyone hold you back." It wasn't always smooth sailing, though. My parents would call every now and then, trying to guilt-trip me into coming back. My mom would cry about how much she missed me, and my dad would say I was being immature for running away. But I didn't care. I wasn't going back. Madison, of course, acted like nothing had changed. She'd text me sometimes, asking for advice, about random things or sending me TikToks she thought were funny. It was like she didn't even realize the extent of the damage she'd caused. Honestly, I didn't care anymore. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was in a place where I could actually focus on myself and my goals. Living with my grandparents wasn't just a safe haven. It was a fresh start. But life has a funny way of turning everything upside down. During my senior year of high school, I got hit with something that changed everything. My grandparents passed, away within months of each other. First grandpa, then grandma. Losing them absolutely shattered me. They were my sanctuary, the only ones who consistently treated me like I mattered. And just like that, they were gone. Amidst all the grief, I had to deal with the responsibilities they left behind. They were very organized, and everything in their will was clearly laid out. They left me their house, a modest little place but filled with love and memories. And then there was the college fund Grandpa had been so diligently saving for me. That college fund was his pride and joy. He'd been contributing to it for years. When I opened the envelope with the account details, I saw the figure, $55,000. It was enough to give me the head start I desperately needed. At first, I didn't even want to touch the money. Thanks to a scholarship, my first year of college tuition was covered, and I was managing my living expenses by working part-time jobs. I lived alone in the house my grandparents left me, juggling classes and work. It was a lot, but I was making it work. But when my second year of college came around, my scholarship ended, and I knew I'd have to start using some of the fund. It wasn't an easy decision. Part of me felt like spending that money meant letting go of Grandpa somehow, but I reminded myself that this was exactly why he'd worked so hard to save it. I remember logging into the account late one night. I had my tuition bill in front of me, and I was doing the math in my head, figuring out how much I'd need to transfer. But when I saw the balance, my heart stopped. It wasn't $55,000 anymore. It was $5,000. At first, I thought I'd made a mistake. Maybe I had the wrong account, or maybe I'd typed something incorrectly. I logged out and back in, but the number didn't change. I just stared at the screen, a wave of confusion and panic washing over me. Where did all the money go? The next morning, I went straight to the bank to figure it out. That's when the truth started to surface. The account had been drained over the past couple of years through dozens of withdrawals. I could barely make sense of it until I saw the names attached to the transactions. My parents. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the evidence was undeniable. They were listed as secondary beneficiaries on the account, a decision Grandpa must have made out of trust or for convenience. And now, they'd taken everything. I spent the rest of the day-in-a-daze trying to process what I'd discovered. My grandparents had worked so hard to give me a chance at a better future, and my own parents had stolen it. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or just give up. Later that evening, I called my mom. I couldn't just let this go without an explanation. I kept my voice calm, even though I was shaking. Hey, I was checking Grandpa's college fund, and most of the money is gone. Do you know what happened to it? There was a long pause before she answered, and when she finally spoke, her tone was defensive. What do you mean it's gone? Are you sure you're looking at the right account? I told her I'd already been to the bank and knew she and Dad had withdrawn the money. That's when she dropped the act and admitted what they'd done. We used it for Madison's Sweet 16, she said, as if it were no big deal. I was stunned. You spent $50,000 on a birthday party? It wasn't just the party, she said, as if that was supposed to make it better. There were a lot of expenses, the venue, the catering, the decorations. Plus, we got her a car. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You spent my college money on Madison's birthday party and a car? But that wasn't even the worst of it. Apparently, they'd also used the money to take Madison on a 2-week family trip to Europe. I say family, but guess who wasn't invited? That's right, me. They didn't even tell me they were going. My mom sighed, like I was the one being unreasonable. You didn't need that money anymore. You had that scholarship and the house, remember? I tried to explain that the scholarship only covered my first year and didn't include living expenses, but she just brushed it off. A Sweet 16 only happens once, she said. We wanted to make it special for her. I was so furious, I just hung up the phone. That night, I sat in the living room of the house my grandparents had left me, surrounded by their photos and the things they'd passed down. It felt like a complete betrayal of everything they'd worked for. I've been trying to figure out my next move. Part of me wants to let it go, just to keep the peace, but another part of me can't stop thinking about Grandpa and how proud he was of that fund. I don't know what I'll do yet, but I do know this. I'm not letting them take away my future. Thanks for reading, everyone. If anyone has advice on how to handle something like this, I'm all ears. I'll keep you posted as I figure things out. Hey again. First off, I want to say thanks for all the comments and advice on my last post. Some of you really helped me see that standing up for myself wasn't just the right thing to do. It was absolutely necessary. A lot of you shared your own stories about toxic family dynamics, and honestly, it made me feel a little less alone. I've been called selfish, dramatic, and ungrateful so many times that I actually started to believe it. But reading your words reminded me that this isn't about being petty. It's about holding people accountable. Anyway, here's the current situation. At first, I tried reasoning with them. I called a family meeting at their house and laid everything out again. I told them the fund wasn't theirs to spend, that it was meant for my education, and that they needed to pay it back. You know what they did? They laughed. My mom literally laughed in my face and said I was being so dramatic about it. "We didn't spend it on nonsense," she said, as if a giant party, a car, and a European vacation weren't the very definition of nonsense. Then she hit me with, "Why can't you just be happy for your sister? This was a once-in-a-lifetime event for her." My dad chimed in with his usual guilt trip routine, saying things like, "You know we'd help you out if you really needed it, and we're family. You shouldn't be so focused on money." That was the final straw for me. I realized they weren't going to take me seriously unless I made them. I could have let it go, sure, but the more I thought about the whole situation, the angrier I got. So I did something I never imagined I'd do. I hired a lawyer. It wasn't an easy decision. I spent days going back and forth, wondering if I was blowing things out of proportion or if I'd just make things worse. But every time I hesitated, I remembered my mom laughing at me and calling me selfish for wanting what was rightfully mine. That was all the motivation I needed. When my parents got served with the paperwork, they completely lost it. My mom called me within hours, screaming about how I was tearing the family apart. She kept saying, "You're going to ruin us. Do you know how this makes us look?" I told her I didn't care how it made them look. They should have thought about that before stealing $50,000. Her response? It wasn't stealing, it was for the family. I couldn't even argue with her. What was the point? She wasn't going to admit she was wrong, so I just told her to talk to my lawyer and hung up. The fallout was immediate. My extended family found out because, of course, my mom couldn't keep quiet about it, and suddenly I was public enemy number one. My aunt called to lecture me about family loyalty and how suing my own parents was disgraceful. My uncle chimed in too, telling me I needed to drop the lawsuit and think about what I was doing to my mom. It was like no one cared about what my parents had done to me. The entire focus was on how I was making them feel. I didn't even respond. What was the use? My dad wasn't much better. He tried saying I was being too harsh and that suing them wasn't the right way to handle things. He kept saying, "We're family, we can work this out." But when I asked him how they planned to pay me back, he dodged the question. That's when I knew I'd made the right call. They weren't going to pay me back unless they were forced to. The hardest part has been how lonely this all feels. Most of my family has taken my parents' side, saying I'm overreacting or being ungrateful. It's like they're completely ignoring the fact that my parents stole money meant for my education and blew it on Madison. But a few of you said something that really stuck with me. If standing up for yourself makes people mad, those people never respected you in the first place. That's been my mantra through all of this. The situation has made me realize just how toxic my family dynamic really is. My parents raised Madison to believe she deserves everything, and they raised me to accept nothing. And now that I'm pushing back, they don't know how to handle it. My mom even threatened to disown me if I didn't drop the lawsuit. She called me crying, saying things like, "Do you really want to destroy our relationship over money?" I told her it wasn't just about money. It was about trust, respect, and the fact that what they did was wrong. She hung up on me. Honestly, her threat didn't scare me. I've been on the sidelines of this family for so long that the idea of being disowned doesn't mean much. It's not like they've ever really been there for me. Right now, things are tense, to say the least. My parents are trying to rally the family against me, and I'm just here trying to keep my head above water. My lawyer says it's going to be a long process, but I'm ready for it. This isn't just about getting the money back. It's about standing up for myself after years of being treated like I didn't matter. My parents might not see it that way, and honestly, I don't expect them to. But for the first time in my life, I'm putting myself first. That's where things are for now. Thanks again for all the support and advice. It's been a rough road, but knowing I'm not alone has made it a little easier. If you've been through something similar, I'd love to hear how you handled it. Hey Reddit, here's the update you've been waiting for. Buckle up because things got messy, but I held my ground. So, if you've been following along, you know I hired a lawyer after my parents drained my college fund to pay for Madison's Sweet 16. Let me tell you, the legal battle that followed was no joke. I'm talking months of back and forth, tons of paperwork, and more family drama than I ever thought possible. The whole process was exhausting. Every time I thought we were making progress, they'd throw another excuse at us. My lawyer would send them a letter, and instead of responding promptly, they'd wait until the last possible second, hoping I'd back down. They were dragging it out on purpose, probably thinking I'd eventually give up. But if they thought I was going to roll over and let them win, they clearly didn't know me at all. After months of this nonsense, they finally realized I wasn't bluffing. The pressure must have gotten to them, because my dad called me one night and said, "All right, we're ready to talk about a solution." Translation: they knew they were about to lose and wanted to cut their losses. Here's where things got really interesting. My parents didn't have the full amount, of course, so they had to scramble to come up with the money. My dad ended up selling Madison's car, the one they'd bought her with my college fund, and a few other valuables to scrape together most of what they owed me. When I heard about the car being sold, I won't lie, I felt a little vindicated. That car was the ultimate symbol of their favoritism, and watching it get taken away felt like some kind of cosmic justice. But Madison, oh, she did not take it well. She started blowing up my phone with these long, hateful texts. According to her, I was the worst sister ever, and all of this was because I was jealous of her. She kept calling me petty and selfish, saying things like, "You're ruining the family over some stupid money." I didn't respond to any of it. Honestly, what was the point? She's been coddled her entire life, and now that she was facing even a fraction of the consequences, she couldn't handle it. If she thought her texts were going to make me feel bad or change my mind, she was dead wrong. Meanwhile, my mom was doing her best to play both sides. She'd call me one day crying and apologizing, and the next day she'd send me passive-aggressive texts about how I was destroying our family bond. She even tried to pull the classic, "You're going to regret this when we're gone," as if her emotional manipulation tactics were going to work after all this. The truth is, by this point, I didn't care what they thought. This wasn't about making them feel bad. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we reached an agreement. They sold enough stuff to repay most of the money, and we worked out a plan for them to pay back the rest over time. It wasn't ideal, but it was better than nothing. Watching them finally take responsibility, kicking and screaming the whole way, was so worth it. My parents hated every second of it. My dad looked like he wanted to be anywhere else when he handed over the first payment, and my mom couldn't even make eye contact. They didn't apologize or admit they were wrong, but honestly, I didn't need them to. Seeing their entitled attitudes, crumble was apology enough. As for Madison, well, let's just say she's still throwing her tantrums. She's been telling everyone who will listen that I ruined her life by getting her car taken away. She even posted this cryptic Instagram story about how families should support each other, not tear each other down. The audacity, right? I didn't bother responding to her directly, but I did laugh a little when one of our mutual friends messaged me saying, "Wow, Madison's really showing her true colors, huh?" People are starting to see through her nonsense, and honestly, that's been the icing on the cake for this whole thing. Now that the legal stuff is mostly behind me, I've been focusing on what really matters, my future. I'm still working on my architecture degree, and things are finally starting to fall into place. I've got a couple of internships lined up, and for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm on solid ground. Once the money was returned, I took a step back and really thought about what I wanted. I realized that I was done. Done being a part of a family that never made me feel like I belonged. So, I made the decision to cut ties with my parents and Madison. They'd shown me time and time again that I was nothing more than a supporting character in their little drama. Madison, of course, took this as yet another personal attack. She sent me this long, self-pitying text about how I was abandoning the family and trying to punish her for being loved. I didn't respond. Here's where it gets a little juicy, though. Remember how my parents drained their savings to pay me back? Well, Madison is starting college this year, and for the first time in her life, my parents can't swoop in and save the day. She'd been expecting the usual royal treatment, fully paid tuition, new gadgets, maybe even a car to take her to and from campus. But nope. Between paying me back and their own bad financial decisions, they didn't have the money to help her. And let me tell you, the fallout has been glorious. Madison had to get a job, an actual job. She works part-time at a coffee shop now, and from what I've heard, she's miserable. She's not used to having to earn anything, and apparently, the idea of making lattes and dealing with customers is beneath her. She's been complaining to anyone who will listen about how unfair it is that she has to work while I'm living comfortably in the house my grandparents left me. The irony of it all. In her world, everything revolves around her, and now that the universe isn't bending to her will, she's falling apart. As for my parents, they're stuck trying to pick up the pieces. My mom called me a few weeks ago crying about how hard things have been. She said Madison was struggling and asked if I could help her out financially, just until things got back to normal. I laughed, actually laughed. I told her no and then reminded her that they'd made their choices. They spent my college fund on Madison's Sweet 16, and now they were dealing with the consequences. My mom got all defensive and said, "We were just trying to do what was best for the family." I told her, "Well, now I'm doing what's best for me," and hung up. Honestly, I don't feel bad about it. Thanks for sticking with me through this journey. Reddit. If you've ever had to make a tough decision about cutting off toxic family members, I'd love to hear how you handled it. It helps knowing I'm not the only one out here trying to figure things out.